because I feel like there might be many listeners who either it will really truly resonate with, or are not identifying with that shame is actually what they're feeling.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I think a lot of people started to be turned on to the term as Brene Brown sort of came to the surface. That's like anybody that talks about shame thinks that she is sort of the guidepost to look at. And she does this incredible research that I think has really moved the system forward. But we've been looking at shame in the context of, therapy, therapeutic modalities, psychological research for years. And what we know is that shame is a universal experience. It's an emotion. It's a feeling that we all have, unless you are born without the capacity to experience emotions. So, the 98% of us, 100% of us almost feel shame. And it is the fear of not being good enough, of not belonging. And so when we go back to those core beliefs, it's the idea that you've already internalized, this is who I am. I am broken. I am the problem.
Yeah.
So shame is kind of like the sleazy car salesman coming in to be like, oh, no, I have the answer. Here's my rule book. You follow these rules, read through this manual. If you do this, it's going to be okay. And then if anybody's ever seen the movie Inside Out, and a beautifully done Pixar movie that talks about emotions, I always go back. There's a moment where the fear emotion sees broccoli on pizza with the main character of the movie and panics because that is not supposed to happen. That's what shame is doing all day long. It's surveying the system. Right now, at some point in this conversation, my shame is going to come in. It's already done it a few times. You're talking too much. You're not being eloquent enough. People don't care to hear this thing. It's the background noise that's happening to say these are all the threats to how you're going to be perceived in the world. And when we're not vigilant of it or aware of it, shame is the thing that's kind of the puppeteer for how we exist in our life. It's why we wore the clothes in middle school that everybody else wore to fit in, or say, hey, I actually hate country music. This is a very real personal example. When I like jazz and hip hop and all my friends like country, but I don't want to say anything because I already feel like I am othered. I need to just fit in. So that's really the experience is, if we boil it down even simpler, it's any time that you feel like you have to change how you're showing up or hide a part of yourself to make sure that you matter, you belong, you're a part of the group in some way, or you're not going to be found out or ostracized.
Right. And so is that really, does shame serve a purpose sort of on the grand scheme of things?
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing that people talk about, and people argue it both ways, I am of the belief it doesn't serve us in any capacity, because the ultimate tenet of it is the belief that you as a human are broken. There's this beautiful example given to me in my training that talked about, all kids go through a lying period. We've all done it as kids as a part of the developmental process. You're supposed to do it to understand what that feels like. And there's a part of storytelling and, expansion of your beliefs and all of that. But if you tell your kid you're a liar, if they believe I'm a liar, it means there's something wrong with me. I, at my core, can't tell the truth. I am the problem. Instead of saying, in this moment, the action is that you lied. And so this really starts to differentiate between shame and guilt. Some people are like, well, shame could be helpful. It's, you feel bad because you're not living in line with values. That's not the point, because it's not a value of I have to like country music to be good enough. It's not a value to say that I have to be a size 2 to be good enough, or that I have to have lighter skin, or that I have to be able-bodied, or that I can't experience pain because that makes me weak. That is the sense of you being broken. Guilt is the idea of something I did or didn't do, or how I'm showing up in the world doesn't sit well with me. I don't like that I lied. I don't like that I hurt somebody's feelings. I don't feel good about the fact that this is how I handled something. Guilt is incredibly powerful and valuable. I think shame, maybe now this is the one thing I could say, maybe as we're talking about chronic pain and long-term recovery and thinking about shame resilience, I think when we're feeling shame, if we can get to a point of awareness of it, because we will feel it the rest of our life, it won't go anywhere. I do think we could see shame as maybe kind of a warning system, a yellow flag. And maybe in that case, we could say it's a benefit, because we could start to recognize when shame gets louder, that's my cue that something's going on. So I think we could use it, but I don't think it in and of itself is helpful.
Well, because it is such a powerful emotion. And I think like everything else, and this is, again, like I've said this so many times, but I'm thankful I'm saying this, is that there's such a beautiful thread that is running through this summit, is that awareness is such a powerful piece of the whole equation. And awareness is also important when it comes to shame, because if we're not aware, we're feeling
Right.
it, then how do we address it? Right. And so I think that's an important part. Actually, that's been a big learning for me in the ripe old age of 50 something, getting diagnosed with ADHD, is that shame is a huge part of it, as it is for the human experience. And so,
yeah.
Right. Okay. So, what is the impact of shame on how we view ourselves? Like, I know we've touched on it a little bit as far as sort of the emotional self not being good enough, but does it stretch beyond that and get into sort of the physical self as well? Or
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot about how, again, if we go back to the Band-Aid movement idea, it's not only that people are trying to put a Band-Aid on our experiences, it's that we are doing it too. So it's, when we're growing up and we're told being angry is unhelpful, being sad, you're dramatic, you're being whiny, you're complaining, get over it.
Yeah.
You start to have your emotions be something that you temper and you try to put